In the high, cold valleys of southwestern China, where the mountains fold into terraces and the growing season is short, a plant with heart-shaped leaves and clusters of small white flowers has fed people for thousands of years. It is called buckwheat. It looks like a grain. It is milled like a grain. It is eaten like a grain. And yet it is not a grain at all, and it is not related to wheat in any meaningful way. Botanically, buckwheat belongs to the family Polygoniaceae, the same family as rhubarb and sorrel. Its closest relatives are not cereals but garden weeds. What we harvest and grind into flour is not a true seed of grass but a fruit, a small three-sided achene, dark and angular, closer in structure to a sunflower seed than to a kernel of barley. Scientists call plants like the pseudo-cereals, and buckwheat is among the oldest of them. The name itself carries the confusion. It comes from the Dutch word Buckwheat, meaning beech wheat, because the little triangular fruits resemble the nuts of the beech tree. The plant was named for what it looked like, not for what it was. Domestication appears to have begun in the region around Yunnan province in southwestern China, with archaeological evidence of buckwheat cultivation reaching back several thousand years. From there it moved outward along trade routes and mountain corridors, into Tibet, across Central Asia, into Russia and Eastern Europe, and eventually into Western Europe by the late medieval period. Wherever it went, it filled a particular niche. Buckwheat does not ask much. It grows in thin, acidic, sandy soils where wheat and barley fail. Tolerates cold. Most importantly, it is fast. From sowing to harvest can be as little as 10 to 12 weeks, which means a farmer can plant it after a failed spring crop and still bring in food before the frost. For centuries, it was the insurance policy of marginal land, the crop of last resort that kept people alive when the better fields did not deliver. The growing of it is deceptively simple. Seed is broadcast or drilled shallowly into a warm seedbed, usually in late spring or early summer, because buckwheat has no tolerance for frost at either end of its life. Within a week, the seedlings emerge, and within a month, the field turns white with flowers. Those flowers are one of the plant's defining traits. Buckwheat is not self-pollinating in any reliable way. It depends on insects, and above all on honeybees, which work the blossoms heavily and produce a dark, strongly flavored honey that is a crop in its own right. The flowering period stretches on for weeks, which means that at harvest a single plant carries ripe fruits, green fruits, and open flowers all at once. There is no clean moment of ripeness. Farmers judge the field by eye, cutting when roughly 3/4 of the fruits have turned brown, accepting that some will shatter and fall before the combine reaches them. Buckwheat is threshed gently, dried carefully, and then dehulled, because the tough outer shell must be removed before the pale inner groat can be eaten. In the kitchen, buckwheat became the backbone of entire regional cuisines. In Russia and Ukraine, roasted groats became kasha, a staple so embedded in the culture that it functions as a synonym for food itself. In Japan, buckwheat flour became soba noodles. In Brittany, it became the dark savory galette. In northern Italy, polenta taragna. In Korea, naengmyeon. In the Himalayas, flatbreads baked on stone. In each case, the appeal was the same. The flour is nutty, faintly bitter, and it carries a nutritional profile unusual among staples. Buckwheat protein contains all the essential amino acids, including lysine, which most true cereals lack. It contains rutin, a flavonoid studied for its effect on blood vessels, and it contains no gluten at all, which for most of history was irrelevant and today is the single largest driver of its commercial revival. In the 20th century, buckwheat nearly disappeared from Western agriculture. Nitrogen fertilizer and modern wheat varieties made the poor soils productive, and the crop of last resort was no longer needed. Global acreage collapsed. Today, Russia and China remain the dominant producers, with Ukraine, Kazakhstan, France, Poland, and Japan following. But the plant has found new work. Farmers sow it as a cover crop because it smothers weeds, scavenges phosphorus, and breaks down quickly. Beekeepers plant it for forage. And in a market increasingly attentive to gluten, the pseudo-grain that isn't wheat at all has become precisely valuable for what it never was.